Ladies and gentlemen, today we stand at a place where we must understand the complex nature of human experience. Life is often not as simple as we would like it to be, and for many it is filled with trials, pain, and suffering. Some of us have endured hardship so great that we wonder if we will ever emerge from the darkness. But here lies a truth that is both empowering and sobering. Suffering, when endured with purpose, can shape us into individuals of remarkable strength and character. People who have endured great suffering often develop an inner strength that is not always visible. Their resilience is born from their pain, and though they may appear broken, they have been transformed by the very trials they've faced. This strength, unlike the strength that comes from comfort or success, is one that is built in the trenches of hardship and adversity. It is forged in the fires of despair and uncertainty. It is a quiet strength, unassuming and powerful in its own right. Those who have suffered learn that survival is not always about fighting to stay above water, but about learning how to endure when you feel like you're drowning. Their pain doesn't necessarily show on the surface, but deep inside they have become more resilient, more unshakable. The reality is that people who have faced significant hardship have been shaped by the struggles they have endured. They may appear to be fine on the outside, but the strength they carry is deep within them, carved into the fabric of their being. It is a strength that does not shout for attention, but is quietly present in every action they take, in every step they move forward, no matter how small that step may seem. This inner strength is often the result of having faced a seemingly endless series of obstacles and challenges. It comes from having been knocked down time and time again, only to rise again, perhaps even stronger than before. Each challenge faced, each moment of pain, adds another layer to their character, making them more resilient and more capable of handling the next test life may throw their way. But while their inner strength is undeniable, it often goes unnoticed by those around them. Those who have suffered too much often carry their burdens silently. They don't speak of their pain, not because they are unwilling to share, but because they have learned that not everyone will understand. They have come to realize that the weight they bear is theirs to carry, and sharing it with others may not always lighten the load. Instead, it often feels like a reminder of their pain, a reinforcement of what they've already endured. This silent strength is not a weakness or a refusal to seek help. Rather, it is a reflection of their quiet confidence in their ability to endure and heal. People who have suffered also develop a unique perspective on life. They understand that life is fragile and that nothing is guaranteed. They have seen how quickly things can change and how easily the ground beneath your feet can shift. Because of this, they often approach life with a sense of gratitude, not for the pain they endured, but for the lessons it taught them. They appreciate the small victories, the simple moments, and the fleeting joys that others may take for granted. They know that life is a gift, and it's in their quiet strength that they are able to make the most of it, finding purpose and meaning even in the darkest of times. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It is a process that takes time, and it requires a deep well of courage. There are days when people who have suffered are overwhelmed by their pain, days when they wonder if they can keep going. But it is in those moments that their inner strength rises to the surface. It may not be loud or grand, but it is there, quietly pushing them forward, urging them to take one more step, to keep going, even when everything inside them screams to give up. This is the strength that comes from surviving the unimaginable, from rising above the ashes of one's own pain and finding the will to move forward. It is a strength that doesn't need validation from others because it is rooted in the self-awareness of having conquered one's own suffering. Furthermore, those who have suffered deeply often develop a sense of compassion for others. They know what it is like to feel broken, lost, and alone. And because of this, they are often the first to offer a listening ear or a comforting word to someone who is struggling. They don't need to be asked for help. They instinctively offer it because they understand the power of compassion and the healing that comes from being seen and heard. In their quiet strength, they become a source of comfort to others who are experiencing their own pain. They are able to show others that it's okay to not be okay, that healing takes time, and that strength doesn't always look the way we expect it to. Even though their suffering may have left deep scars, it has also helped to refine them. It has taught them resilience, self-awareness, and empathy. They may no longer be the same person they once were, but in many ways they have become more than they ever were before. The pain has shaped them into someone capable of extraordinary strength. Strength that is not determined by their circumstances, but by their ability to continue on despite them. This silent strength is a gift that only those who have truly suffered can understand. And it is a gift that enables them to live with purpose, humility, and grace, no matter what challenges life may present. What the world often misses is that suffering does not always break people. Sometimes it builds them in ways that are invisible to the naked eye, but deeply felt in the heart. The quiet strength that arises from suffering is a reminder that resilience is not always about how loudly we fight back, but about how quietly we endure and rise again, stronger and more determined than ever. Suffering, when unaddressed, can leave deep emotional scars. These scars are not always visible, yet they shape the very core of a person. They are not just memories of pain, but lingering imprints that influence every thought, every action, and every interaction. When the wounds of the past remain unhealed, they continue to affect how a person views the world and how they relate to others. In some cases, these unhealed wounds manifest in ways that may seem confusing, irrational, or even distant. Those who carry such scars often find it difficult to connect with others because they are still struggling to make peace with the pain that has shaped their hearts. The burden of unhealed wounds is not just about the suffering one has endured, but about the ongoing effect those wounds have on one's behavior. A person who has been hurt deeply may find it hard to trust again. They may withdraw from relationships not because they don't want connection, but because they are terrified of being hurt again. These emotional scars create walls around their hearts, and while these walls are built as a form of protection, they also isolate them from the very things that can bring healing, connection, vulnerability, and love. The fear of being hurt again can be so overwhelming that they avoid situations, people, and even opportunities that might seem too good to be true. These unhealed wounds often shape a person's worldview in ways that can be difficult to understand for others. A person who has experienced betrayal may struggle with feelings of suspicion, not necessarily because they want to distrust others, but because their past experiences have taught them that trust can be broken. Someone who has suffered from loss may seem withdrawn or distant, not because they are uninterested, but because the grief they carry has taught them to guard their emotions, to protect themselves from future heartache. These behaviors, although they may seem irrational or overprotective, are often the result of an internal battle with pain that has not yet been processed or healed. The emotional scars left by suffering can also alter a person's ability to forgive. When we experience deep hurt, there is often a tendency to hold on to that pain, to let it define us. This pain can grow into resentment, and while forgiveness may seem like the logical step, it is not always an easy one. Unhealed wounds can make forgiveness feel like an impossibility. After all, how do you forgive something that has deeply scarred you? How do you release someone who has caused you so much pain? The answer is not simple, and sometimes it may feel like the wounds are too fresh to allow healing to begin. This burden of unresolved pain can weigh heavily on the person carrying it, affecting their ability to move forward in life. It's important to understand that people with unhealed wounds are not weak, nor are they incapable of change. In fact, many of them are trying their best to survive and make sense of their pain. But without addressing and healing these wounds, the pain becomes a constant companion. It influences their decisions, their relationships, and even their perception of themselves. For someone who has been deeply hurt, it can be difficult to see their worth when their mind is constantly replaying the hurtful experiences of the past. They may believe that they are damaged, that they are undeserving of love, or that they will never be whole again. These beliefs are rooted in the wounds they carry, and until they begin to address those wounds, they will continue to influence every aspect of their lives. In some cases, people may even attempt to numb the pain with distractions or unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as substance abuse, overworking, or even emotional withdrawal. While these actions may provide temporary relief, they do nothing to address the root cause of the pain. In fact, they often serve to prolong the suffering, delaying the healing process and reinforcing the belief that the wound is too deep to heal. The burden of unhealed wounds is a heavy one to carry, and it takes tremendous courage to face them head-on and begin the process of healing. The healing process is not a quick or easy one, but it is necessary. Healing begins with acknowledging the wound, with allowing oneself to feel the pain, and with giving oneself permission to grieve. It requires seeking help, whether through therapy, support from loved ones, or finding a way to make peace with the past. Healing is a journey, and it is different for each person. Some may find solace in faith, others in creative expression, and still others in meaningful relationships. Whatever path they take, healing is the only way to break free from the burden of unhealed wounds. Without healing, the emotional scars of suffering can continue to shape a person's life in ways that are not always visible to the outside world. They can create barriers that prevent the person from fully living, from connecting with others, and from embracing the future. But with healing, these wounds can become sources of strength, empathy, and wisdom. People who have suffered deeply and healed from their wounds often develop a unique ability to understand and support others who are in pain. They become living testimonies of the power of healing, showing others that while suffering may shape us, it does not have to define us. The key is to address the wounds, to face the pain, and to begin the difficult but transformative process of healing. Only then can we truly let go of the burden and move forward with freedom and peace. After experiencing hardship, many people seek control over their environment as a means to avoid further pain. The instinct to regain control becomes a natural response to the chaos and unpredictability that hardship often brings. When life feels out of our hands, the desire to control what we can, whether it's our surroundings, our relationships, or our future, becomes a way to protect ourselves from being hurt again. This desire for control is a coping mechanism, a way of creating some semblance of order and predictability in a world that has often felt erratic and unforgiving. In essence, control becomes the illusion of safety, the belief that if we can manage every detail, we can avoid suffering altogether. The need for control often manifests in ways that can seem extreme or irrational to those who haven't experienced the same level of pain. For some, this takes the form of perfectionism, a relentless drive to ensure that everything is flawless, that nothing is out of place, and that there is no room for error. Perfectionism becomes a shield against the vulnerability that comes with imperfection. When we can control every outcome, we can make everything just right. The fear of failure or rejection is minimized. However, this constant drive for perfection often becomes exhausting and unattainable. No matter how hard one tries, the perfection they seek is always just beyond reach, leading to frustration, burnout, and a continual sense of dissatisfaction. Yet, for those who have suffered, perfectionism offers the illusion of control and a way to keep their pain at bay. For others, the need for control may show up as overcautiousness or hypervigilance. They become excessively careful about their choices, their actions, and the people they trust. They second-guess every decision, anticipating the worst-case scenario in an effort to prevent another disappointment or loss. These individuals might avoid taking risks, even when those risks could lead to growth or opportunity. Their caution is a reflection of the trauma they have experienced. The more they control their actions, the less likely they feel they are to encounter further hurt. However, this overcautious approach can stifle their potential and keep them stuck in a cycle of fear and avoidance, rather than moving forward and embracing the uncertainties of life. This desire for control also often extends to relationships. People who have suffered are more likely to be suspicious or distrusting of others, especially if they have been hurt by those they once trusted. They may set rigid boundaries, pushing others away or keeping them at arm's length in an effort to avoid being vulnerable. Their need to control the dynamics of relationships may manifest as an inability to open up or fully engage emotionally. They may withhold affection or love, believing that if they don't give too much of themselves, they won't risk being hurt. While this need for control can create a sense of safety, it also prevents true connection. It keeps relationships at a surface level and denies both parties the opportunity for deeper intimacy. In an attempt to avoid pain, they may inadvertently create distance, making it harder for others to understand or support them. The desire for control can also influence how people approach their careers, finances, and even their daily routines. Many individuals who have experienced hardship will develop meticulous routines or obsessive attention to detail in an attempt to ensure that nothing goes wrong. They might overly plan every aspect of their lives, believing that if they can anticipate every possible outcome, they can avoid surprises. While a certain degree of planning and preparation is necessary, when this drive for control becomes all-consuming, it can lead to anxiety and a lack of flexibility. Life, by its very nature, is unpredictable, and no amount of planning can account for every possible scenario. Those who try to control everything often find themselves frustrated, as the reality that not everything can be controlled clashes with their need for perfection. Interestingly, this desire for control may also lead people to try to control their emotions. After experiencing emotional pain, individuals may suppress their feelings, refusing to acknowledge their hurt in an effort to avoid feeling vulnerable again. They may tell themselves to get over it or move on, not realizing that this suppression only adds to the weight of the pain they are carrying. Instead of processing their emotions and allowing themselves to heal, they try to manage them as if they are something that can be controlled. However, emotions are not so easily contained. Repressed emotions eventually find their way to the surface, often in unhealthy ways. Through stress, anger, or emotional numbness. The desire to control emotions can lead to an internal struggle where the person is constantly at odds with themselves, fighting against feelings that they cannot truly suppress. Ultimately, the desire for control arises from a deep need to protect oneself from further suffering. After experiencing pain, it is natural to want to create an environment where the risk of being hurt is minimized. However, this need for control, when taken to extremes, can prevent healing. The attempt to control everything often results in anxiety, frustration, and a constant state of tension, as the reality of life's unpredictability clashes with the need for order. The challenge for those who have suffered is to learn how to strike a balance, how to embrace uncertainty and vulnerability while also protecting their peace of mind. It requires recognizing that while we can control some aspects of our lives, we cannot control everything. Healing comes not from eliminating all risk, but from learning to trust again, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, and to find strength in the face of uncertainty. The desire for control, though born from a place of pain, can ultimately be transformed into a source of empowerment. By learning to let go of the need to control every detail, individuals can regain a sense of freedom and peace. Instead of trying to avoid pain at all costs, they can begin to embrace the unpredictable nature of life, finding strength in their ability to navigate it with resilience and grace. In this way, the desire for control can evolve from a reaction to suffering into a path toward healing and personal growth. Suffering too much can build walls around the heart. The pain of repeated betrayals, heartbreaks, and disappointments can cause individuals to retreat inwardly, constructing barriers that are meant to protect them from future hurt. The fear of vulnerability becomes a defense mechanism, a way of shielding the heart from further wounds. When someone has been hurt deeply, they may instinctively close themselves off to avoid feeling the sharp sting of rejection or emotional pain once more. These walls, while built with the intent to keep harm out, also keep love, connection, and healing at bay. The paradox is that, while these walls may provide temporary safety, they also create the very isolation that leads to continued emotional suffering. The fear of vulnerability is rooted in the desire to protect oneself. After enduring intense suffering, it can feel safer to remain guarded, to keep one's emotions in check, and to avoid letting anyone too close. The thought of being open again, allowing someone to see their true self, their pain, and their imperfections, can be terrifying. Vulnerability requires a level of trust that many people who have been hurt simply cannot offer. Trust has been broken too many times, and each betrayal, rejection, or abandonment leaves a mark that makes it harder to believe in the goodness of others. It creates a deep sense of self-protection, and the idea of opening up becomes a source of anxiety rather than comfort. For those who have suffered, vulnerability can feel like an invitation to be hurt once again. The fear is not just about the potential for another emotional wound, but also about the loss of control. When we open ourselves to others, we relinquish some of our emotional autonomy, and for someone who has suffered greatly, that can feel like too much of a risk. The more they have been hurt, the more they close off their heart, because the emotional cost of being vulnerable seems too high. They may avoid deep conversations, keep their feelings to themselves, or engage only in superficial connections, all in an effort to maintain a sense of emotional control. While this may protect them in the short term, it can also prevent them from experiencing the deep, meaningful relationships that they secretly crave. The fear of vulnerability also manifests in struggles with intimacy. Intimacy requires a degree of emotional openness, a willingness to share one's fears, desires, dreams, and weaknesses with another person. However, for someone who has suffered emotional trauma, intimacy can feel like a dangerous territory. They may long for connection and closeness, but the vulnerability required for intimacy feels overwhelming. The closer they get to someone, the more exposed they feel, and that exposure often triggers their fear of being hurt again. Even though their heart longs for connection, the thought of allowing someone else to truly know them without the safety of distance or walls feels too risky. Ironically, even though people who have suffered fear vulnerability, they often yearn for it on a deep level. Beneath the walls, beneath the defense mechanisms, there is still a human need for love, affection, and companionship. These individuals desire to be seen, heard, and understood in a way that transcends surface-level interactions. They want to share their true selves with others, but they are unsure of how to do so without opening themselves up to pain. The tension between wanting connection and fearing vulnerability can create a profound inner conflict, leading to feelings of loneliness, isolation, and emotional exhaustion. The deeper the wound, the more intense the struggle between self-protection and the desire for authentic relationships. The struggle with vulnerability can also affect how people perceive themselves. After suffering too much, they may begin to see themselves as unworthy of love, damaged, or broken. This distorted self-perception reinforces the belief that they need to hide their true selves in order to protect others from their flaws or pain. They may feel that if others knew the extent of their suffering, they would be rejected or misunderstood. In this way, the fear of vulnerability becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more they hide their pain, the more they convince themselves that they are not deserving of genuine love or understanding. This internalized belief further isolates them, preventing them from seeking the connections they need for healing. However, the healing of this fear is possible. It requires time, self-compassion, and most importantly, a willingness to trust again. It is a process of slowly dismantling the walls that have been built, brick by brick, with the understanding that not everyone will hurt them. Healing begins with acknowledging the fear and recognizing that vulnerability, while risky, is not inherently dangerous. It involves embracing the idea that even in our most vulnerable moments, there is strength. True healing comes when we can open our hearts to others, knowing that it is not about being perfect or invulnerable, but about embracing our humanity and allowing others to do the same. Those who have suffered need not remain prisoners of their fear. Vulnerability, when approached with care, can be the gateway to deeper, more authentic connections. It allows us to find the people who can truly support us, not in spite of our pain, but because of it. Vulnerability, when practiced with the right people, has the power to heal, to create bonds that are rooted in trust, compassion, and mutual understanding. It allows us to rebuild the bridges between ourselves and others, and ultimately between ourselves and the world. By facing the fear of vulnerability and allowing ourselves to be seen, we can finally let go of the walls that have held us back, step into the light, and embrace the connection we so desperately need. Silence becomes a refuge for those who have been through significant suffering. In a world that constantly demands action, words, and engagement, silence offers a sanctuary, a space where one can retreat from the noise and confusion that life often brings. For many who have endured emotional pain, this silence is not a form of avoidance, but rather a tool for introspection and healing. It is within this quietude that they can process their emotions, reflect on their experiences, and begin to make sense of the chaos that has shaken their world. The power of silence is found in its ability to provide clarity amidst confusion, to foster self-awareness, and to create an environment where true healing can take place. For those who have suffered, silence allows them to hear their own thoughts and feel their emotions without the interference of external pressures or expectations. It provides the space to sit with pain and understand it, rather than running from it or numbing it with distractions. In the stillness, they can reflect on what they've been through, what they've learned, and how they can move forward. This process of introspection is essential for healing, as it enables individuals to make peace with their past, understand the depths of their wounds, and begin to chart a path toward recovery. The silence becomes a mirror, reflecting not only the scars of their suffering, but also the resilience and strength that they may not have seen in themselves before. Reflection in silence also offers an opportunity for growth. It is during these moments of quiet contemplation that many individuals find the strength to forgive both others and themselves. The pain that comes with suffering can often lead to bitterness or resentment, and the act of reflecting in silence allows one to release these negative emotions. Through quiet introspection, people come to understand that healing requires letting go of grudges, of the desire for revenge, and of the past that continues to haunt them. It is in this silence that forgiveness becomes possible, not as a favor to those who have wronged them, but as a means of freeing themselves from the chains of anger and resentment. Moreover, silence allows for the development of a deeper sense of self-awareness. After suffering, many individuals struggle with their sense of identity. The pain can cause them to lose sight of who they are, or it can distort their perception of themselves. In silence, they are able to reconnect with their true selves, separate from the hurt and trauma that have defined them. This self-reflection fosters clarity, enabling them to rediscover their purpose, their values, and their capacity for love and connection. It is within this silence that individuals can reclaim their sense of agency, realizing that despite the pain they have endured, they still have the power to choose their responses and shape their future. However, while silence can be deeply healing, it is not always understood by those around them. For those who are unfamiliar with the healing power of quiet reflection, silence can be misinterpreted. Others may perceive the person who remains silent as aloof, cold, or emotionally distant. The absence of words can sometimes be mistaken for a lack of caring or empathy, when in reality, it is often a sign of someone who is deeply engaged in their own emotional process. People who have suffered may retreat inwardly, not because they no longer wish to connect with others, but because they need time to process their feelings and regain their strength. They are not withdrawing out of disinterest, but rather out of necessity, recognizing that in order to fully heal, they need space to reflect and make sense of their journey. This misunderstanding can lead to feelings of isolation or frustration. Those who are trying to heal in silence may feel that their need for quiet is not respected or understood, and this lack of understanding can further reinforce their sense of being misunderstood. In a world that values constant interaction and communication, taking the time to be still can be seen as a rejection, when in truth, it is a form of self-care. Those who retreat into silence may long for connection, but they also recognize the importance of processing their pain alone before they can truly be open to others again. The power of silence then lies in its dual nature. It is both a refuge and a challenge. It offers a space for healing, but it also requires courage. It asks individuals to confront their pain, to sit with it, and allow it to unfold without the distractions of the outside world. In that space, clarity is found and strength is restored. Yet, it also requires a certain vulnerability to embrace silence, for it demands that a person be honest with themselves and face what they have been avoiding. Silence is not just an escape from the noise of the world, it is a deep dive into the soul, a journey that requires patience, reflection, and time. While silence may be misunderstood by others, it is often essential for those who have suffered to reclaim their peace and find their way to healing. It is in those quiet moments that they are able to restore their sense of self, to process their pain, and to begin the slow but steady work of recovery. Silence becomes not just an absence of sound, but a powerful tool for emotional restoration. Through it, they discover the strength to move forward, the clarity to see their path, and the resilience to continue on despite the pain they have endured. In the end, the silence that some may perceive as coldness is actually a testament to the inner work that is being done, the process of healing, reflecting, and finding the strength to rise again. Ironically, people who have suffered deeply often develop a profound sense of empathy. The very pain that once left them feeling broken or lost becomes the foundation for a deeper connection with the suffering of others. Through their own experiences, they gain insight into the depths of emotional struggle, and as a result, they become uniquely equipped to understand and offer support to others who are enduring similar challenges. Those who have experienced hardship often have a greater capacity for empathy because they know firsthand what it feels like to be in the midst of emotional turmoil. They recognize the isolation, the confusion, and the vulnerability that accompany suffering, and they are able to extend compassion in a way that goes beyond surface-level sympathy. This transformation into compassionate healers is not a sudden shift, nor is it something that happens overnight. It emerges over time as individuals process their own pain and learn to navigate the difficult terrain of healing. When people who have suffered begin to find their own strength, they naturally want to help others do the same. There is a deep understanding that healing is a journey, and because they have walked that path themselves, they are able to offer guidance, encouragement, and support to others who may feel as though they are walking in darkness. Their pain becomes a source of wisdom, a wellspring of understanding from which they can draw to offer comfort to others in need. This empathy also allows them to communicate in a way that is deeply validating. People who have suffered know what it feels like to feel unheard or misunderstood. They understand the need to be seen, to have someone acknowledge your pain without judgment. As compassionate healers, they can offer that sense of validation to others. Their words are often seasoned with the wisdom of experience, and they have an uncanny ability to meet others where they are, without rushing them through their pain. This non-judgmental space that they create allows others to open up, to share their struggles, and to feel safe in expressing their vulnerability. Moreover, the journey of personal healing gives them a unique perspective on the importance of self-care, patience, and forgiveness. Those who have suffered know that healing does not happen instantly, nor does it occur in a straight line. They understand that there will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and periods where it feels as though progress has been lost. However, because they have experienced these ebbs and flows themselves, they are able to reassure others that healing is not about perfection, it's about progress, persistence, and grace. They teach others that it's okay to have bad days, that it's okay to stumble, and that healing is a process that requires time, kindness, and acceptance. In addition, compassionate healers understand the importance of vulnerability. Having faced their own vulnerabilities, they know how difficult it can be to open up to others and admit that you're struggling. They know how much courage it takes to ask for help and to lean on someone for support. This awareness enables them to create spaces where others feel safe to be vulnerable and to seek the help they need. They can empathize with the fear of being judged or rejected, and they offer a sense of security that makes it easier for others to take the step toward healing. They are not only compassionate listeners, but also compassionate guides, helping others navigate the difficult and often painful process of recovery. In many ways, their suffering becomes a source of strength, both for themselves and for those they support. As compassionate healers, they carry the wisdom that comes from having weathered their own storms. They become living proof that healing is possible, that pain is not permanent, and that even the most broken parts of us can be transformed into something beautiful. Their journey through suffering grants them a depth of understanding that others may never attain, and it allows them to offer a level of compassion that feels genuine and grounded in lived experience. It's important to note, however, that the transformation into compassionate healers is not about glorifying suffering. People who have suffered are not defined by their pain, but rather by their ability to transcend it and use it to help others. The compassion they offer is not born out of a desire to remain in a state of suffering, but from a place of healing and strength. They have been through the darkness and have emerged with a greater understanding of both themselves and the world around them. They know that their pain has the power to bring light to others who are still struggling in the shadows. As compassionate healers, these individuals are not necessarily seeking to fix others or to solve their problem. Rather, they offer a sense of solidarity, a reminder that no one is alone in their pain. They share the wisdom that healing is not linear, that it's okay to ask for help, and that it's possible to emerge stronger from hardship. Their presence alone provides comfort as they offer a quiet yet profound assurance that the struggle will eventually lead to growth. In the end, people who have suffered deeply and become compassionate healers exemplify the profound strength that can arise from pain. Their ability to empathize, support, and guide others through their own struggles makes them invaluable in a world that can often feel indifferent or disconnected. They are living testaments to the power of resilience and the transformative nature of suffering. Through their healing, they not only help others mend, but they also continue their own journey of growth, discovering new depths of compassion and understanding along the way. In conclusion, the journey of suffering is not one that should be feared, nor should it be seen as a mark of weakness. On the contrary, it is through the fires of hardship that we are refined, that we are transformed, and that we emerge not as broken individuals, but as individuals of strength, wisdom, and compassion. Those who have suffered deeply possess a unique power, the power to heal, to empathize, and to offer guidance in ways that others may never understand. Their pain becomes the very thing that enables them to connect with others on a profound level, to offer solace where there is despair, and to provide hope where there is none. When we face suffering, we must recognize that it does not define us. It is simply a part of our journey. And in that journey, we find not only our own healing, but also our capacity to heal others. We learn to embrace our vulnerabilities, to find strength in our silence, and to become compassionate healers who can guide others through their struggles. Our pain, once a source of fear and isolation, becomes a bridge that connects us to the suffering of others. And through that connection, we discover our true purpose: to serve, to love, and to help others find the strength to rise. So, let us not fear the storms that come into our lives, for they have a purpose. They shape us, they mold us, and they prepare us for the greater work that we are called to do. In the end, those who have suffered the most are often those who have the most to give, the most to share, and the most to offer. Their pain is not in vain, for it is through their wounds that the world will find healing.